welcome back to another episode of That's My Dad. Dr. Mike McClellan's here. A lot of people know Mike's a chiropractor in Gadsden, Alabama, involved in a lot of community activities and just a great guy. Mike, you and I met many, many years ago. Our kids they went to school together.
Right. School at Westbrook, played soccer together.
Danny and Austin. And my one of my memories of you is we were in charge of chaperoning this trip to the zoo in the second grade. And Danny and Austin were little guys, and we went to the zoo and we lost them. Do you remember that?
I do. I didn't until you said that.
Yeah,
yes,
it's been
I
a
do
long
now.
time.
Yeah.
So they're
in front of Dr. Leslie. Thank you.
They're in their
We lost the
mid-20s now.
children.
So Mike and I got carried away in some kind of conversation, and we were over by the giraffes and looked around, and Danny and Austin, we were responsible for everybody else's kids too. Yeah. They were nowhere to be found. I'm like, oh no, Mike. Well, priority number one was none of the moms can find out about this. So we find them. We find the boys, and we kind of casually said, okay, guys, y'all got lost, but we found you. Rule number one, mom doesn't know about this. Right. What's the first thing that Austin did when Danny got home? So, Mom, Dr. Mike and Daddy lost us at the zoo by the giraffes. So that's my earliest memory of you. That's kind of crazy.
Isn't that wild? Yeah.
But then we coached soccer against each other when those guys were little, and you were like the king of soccer, and I didn't know. I never did figure out what offsides was. So I think eventually I joined you as an assistant for a little bit.
We did coach together. Yeah.
Coached together. And something happened one day at soccer practice. I want to tell this story. The Eagle Rock, which was the boys' ranch that I founded, had acquired some property. We just bought some property from the city. And word had gotten out. It's kind of just an incredible story of how God provided that 32 acres. And so I go to pick Danny up at soccer practice one day, and you wave at me to come over, and I'm thinking, surely my little Danny hadn't done something wrong. I've been trying to get him to fight somebody for years. He's just so passive. So, but it turned out it was nothing about Danny. And you said, hey, I've bought this property, and it's got a house on it. And I'm wondering, I heard you had some land, and I'm wondering if the boys' ranch could use a house. Well, that really perked my interest. So I went and looked at it. Make a long story short, we ended up moving that house. You donated it to the ranch. Todd Walker's church, Daystar Christian Church, took up an offering, an impromptu offering one morning, collected $32,000, paid to move that house. We ended up with a 6,000 square foot house on 32 acres for $100.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
Just an incredible story. And today, the house that you gave to Eagle Rock is being used every day, and there's several kids, and there have been hundreds of kids live there. So thank you for that. You've left a legacy.
Well, and thank you, and I think we're treating about 3 or 4 of your house parents and your maintenance people, and Belinda and Andy, and, it's like they're like our family.
I was telling you, kind of before we went live, I've not always known why I was prompted to invite someone to be on the program. I think that's become clear to me in just the last few minutes, because you had an experience of where you feel like it's time for you to tell your story, and I haven't heard it, but just a little bit of it. So I want you to just roll into it, and I'm going to sit back. Let's tell your life story.
It's just, it started out in a very interesting way, I guess, because I was born January 7th of 55. Okay. 3 weeks later, my father died. My dad dies. Okay. He's 25 years old. He goes in the hospital, appendicitis. They operate on him. He gets an infection and dies. So there's my mother with a brand new baby, 3-week-old baby, lost her husband. So she moves back in with her family. And about a year later, she marries Jim McClellan, okay? And so then, Jim McClellan was one of 13 children, grew up with an abusive, alcoholic father. And basically, he had an 8th grade education. He really quit school in the 8th grade just so that he could work and bring money home to his mother and be able to bring things into the house. And so, when she married him about a year later, they decided to adopt me, and then they had 4 other children. So I had 2 sisters and then 2 brothers. And so growing up, adopted and the oldest of the five was real interesting because, when you look at somebody, when you're really kind of studying people, you look at somebody and you think, that person doesn't really like me. You ever get that
Mhm.
feeling like,
Mhm.
like no matter what I do, I just can't seem to do it good enough or whatever. And that was, I guess, pretty much the feeling that I had most of my young life is like, I just I wasn't right. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
And so, and I guess really, and I made a few notes about like, what were the negatives in that, but then
Mhm.
also, there were some positives, but basically the way I look at the negative part of that was that he lived his life with us like he grew up.
Mhm.
He brought that alcoholism, he brought the abusiveness into our family. And, I think there's people, you're around people that are drinking and they're happy and, the life of the party. And
Mhm.
then there's that mean drunk, that just
Mhm.
was not a bad guy when he wasn't drinking, but when he started drinking, like, the
Mhm.
world changed, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And I used to talk about how difficult it was and, the abuse on us and the abuse on my mother. I watched him, beat my mother many, many times. And, so as I got to be a little older and, and I really I didn't know that I was adopted until some years later. And then I found some things about my dad. Okay. And I remember bringing them up one time at a dinner table. Like, what was my dad like? Was the question I
Mhm.
can remember. And, Jim jumps up from the table and runs off crying. And I was told that I should never, ever say that again.
Mm.
Don't ever bring that up again. So it was almost like, the secrets were what was obvious.
Mhm.
I would have thought that why wouldn't we talk about that or why wouldn't we,
Right.
deal with those kind of things? And what was the problem? I mean, I'm here, you adopted me, I can't go anywhere. He's
Mhm.
not alive. I can't leave. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So why couldn't we talk about it? And that my whole life was a challenge for me that we really couldn't discuss that. And I think like, the pivotal points were, like sports and things that I wanted to do. I can remember him saying things like, don't keep up with the Joneses, don't be a glory hog, and I know now looking back, it was his self esteem that kind of lowered the standards, I guess, if I can use that as an example. But so the whole time that I was in high school and middle school and trying to compete at any level, it was always like, well, don't do that, And I joke, I should have been a halfback and a wrestler. I was
Mm.
really, really good at both of those, but I was never allowed to do that because that's like the glory positions in a sense.
Mm. So he
Uh,
held you back a lot.
yeah, and I really feel like he did in a sense, and it was almost a lot of like the reverse psychology. You're not good enough. You can't do this.
Mhm.
So it drove me to do it. As an example, I played middle linebacker in high school at 140 pounds. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Played hard and was actually turned out to be pretty good at that. Lifted weights at a really high level, competed powerlifting and things, but was always kind of never allowed to really do what I think I would have been really good at. Okay. So, and I think that was probably a pivotal point. I remember one time, I was lifting weights and I got really strong and he came to me and he said, he kind of threatened me and he said, if you ever get the urge that you can take me, I just want you to know that, I would use a pipe. I would use whatever it takes
Really?
to never lose. And I
Your
was thinking, whoa,
your
like,
your dad who adopted you is not going to take a pipe after you if he has
well,
to.
that's what he said. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So, man, like you're a teenager. You know
So
what I'm saying?
you sounds like you got kind of had a harsh upbringing. Am I reading more into
Well,
this than I should?
I think, and as I get through this, I think that, he never could say he loved us. You know what I'm saying? And that
Mhm.
may have been that generation. I look at it now and I think back. You grow up with one of 13. Your dad's never around. Your mother's pregnant your whole life. You know what I'm saying? I
Mhm.
mean, poor thing. We counted it one day. She was pregnant for 27 years, pregnant or with a baby for 27 years. That's pretty crazy when you think about it.
Wow.
And so that was their lifestyle. And so, but I can remember times when it just, the house was like an explosion. It was like this 800-pound gorilla came home and just rocked everybody's world. And, I remember one time he was really, really drunk and he and my mother were in a big fight and he was going to go back out again. He was going to go back to the bar again or whatever. And she stood in front of the door and wasn't going to let him out. So he put his hand on her throat, and he cocked his hand like he was going to punch her. And I don't even know why, but I just jumped up and got in the middle of that. And I remember grabbing his throat and cocking my hand. And there we stood face to face looking at each other. And he broke the hold on my mother and just ran away, ran upstairs. And she looked at me and said, "You need to apologize for that." And I said, "Whoa." I said, "Well, I'm not going to apologize. I may have just saved your life, but you're about as sick as he is." You know what I'm saying? And that at that point, and I was like a late teenager at that point, and really that's kind of when I decided that I need to get out of here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need to leave and I need to get out of here. And so, I had an opportunity to go to Canada. I had a chance to go to Canada after my junior year of high school and work in a fishing lodge. And then I had a really good opportunity. I went back at the end of my senior year, and I spent about 4 or 5 months there. I was able to stay until October, which is their Thanksgiving. And then I came home, and then I took a job in a factory. They wanted me to go to college. I had no desire to go to college. Worked in a factory for a while, and then finally, met a young lady that was going to college and thought maybe I should go to college. But the thing that happened during that time was, it was interesting because when I got away, in a sense, I felt bad for my sisters and my brothers because I knew what they were going through. You know what I'm saying? He kind of diverted that energy in that direction. And then when I was a sophomore in college, I remember getting a phone call one night from my mother, and she said, "Have you seen Jimmy?" There was me, 2 girls, and Jimmy, and we were all about 2 years apart. It was a close group at the top. And then my brother Dan was 6 years younger than Jimmy, came along 6 years later. So I get a phone call that Jimmy has been gone for a few days. And it turned out that Jimmy had followed more in my dad's pattern, in a sense. He was drinking at a young age. He was only 14. Kind of reminds me of your kids, that you had at the ranch. And I mean, these kids just were not going in the right direction. You know what I'm saying? And I wasn't home. So there was that guilt, like, man, what if I wouldn't have gone to Canada? What if I would have stayed home? What if I would not have left? You know what I'm saying? And so, but anyway, as it turned out, I came home from college. I was in finals week when she called me. I came home from college, and about 2 weeks later, they found my brother in the river. He had drowned in the river and floated down to the next town. And so it was like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? What if,
So you had that guilt, and you had taken on the role of caretaker or overlooker.
Almost a protector at a certain point, But how do you protect against something like that?
Yeah, children of alcoholics tend to take on different roles, and they often take on the role of protector, and that's what you had taken by. Man, the trauma of having to deal with. Did that bother you for a long time?
I'm not sure it doesn't still bother me. You know what I'm saying? It was weird. I was telling you just before we started this, a few weeks back, we were in Atlanta at a friend's, and we were doing a chiropractic seminar, and this came up. Like, where did this come? Why? I don't know why this came up, but he said, this is about speak up and lead, learn to speak your voice and say what's on your mind. And we went to lunch, and I was like, I got to talk about this. And I even looked at Leslie and I said, I got to tell my story, which is weird to me.
You do have an incredible story, but the most incredible part of the story is that you turned it around.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
And that's the positive part. Okay. So, let's just think about Jim McClellan. Jim McClellan was one of 13, 8th grade education.
Your stepfather.
Yeah. Or adopted father, however we want to look at it. And maybe in a sense, he was doing the very best that he could do with what he had. You know what I'm saying? But when I looked at that, and when I decided that I was going to have a family, especially when I decided to have a family, I made that decision that I was going to break that curse. That generational curse was going to be broken, and there would never be addiction, violence, any of that in my home. And so so I think from the positives, maybe, the reverse psychology worked on me. When he did those things to me, instead of breaking down, it made me stronger. Okay. But then when he broke Jimmy down, Jimmy couldn't do it. I mean, I believe that Jimmy committed suicide, and the way the funeral happened and the way the whole town reacted to his losing Jimmy, it was a very, very strange event. So, we truly believe that he had just given up and said, I can't do this
Yeah,
anymore.
it was that rough. Home
It was very rough,
home
yeah.
was that rough. Do you
Yeah.
recall any particular point in time? Was there a specific time that you remember thinking, I've got to do better. I'm going to change. I'm going to flip this script, or did it just kind of evolve as time went?
Mm, I think probably at that time when it got to the point, I was about 15 years old and I actually ran away from home. I just had enough. And my neighbor, it was kind of funny, Rick Miller, failed the ninth grade.
Hmm.
He was going to have to stay because everybody else was going to the high school. And Rick says, I'm done. I'm never going back to school. And so I said, well, I'm having a really rough time. You want to run away? And he said, yeah. So we did. We started hitchhiking, a couple of kids with a bag, and started hitchhiking back in the days when you could hitchhike pretty much anywhere, And we were gone for about 5 days, and we had, I don't know, $40 each or something like that. And we ran out of money. We were eating pizzas every night. It was kind of a interesting, that's an interesting story in itself. But we ended up going to a town called Meadville, and there was an amusement park there called Conneaut Lake Park. And we were trying to get to the park to get a summer job. We never made it there. And looking back and with pedophiles and all the crazy stuff that may have happened to us, probably was a good thing that we didn't get there. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, we decided after a week or so that ran out of money. We just turned ourselves into the police, and my parents came to get us, and his parents came to get him, and
So you just have to endure it. So,
yeah, but I'll tell you what happened. They picked us up. We got locked in a cell, so we were in a cell for the night. And Rick's parents got there first, and I'll never forget. I heard a policeman coming up the stairs, and he opened up that door. Turns the key and opens up this big door, and he goes, Rick Miller. And Rick comes to the door, and I get up and I walk to the door, and he puts his hand in my chest and shoves me back and closes the door and locks it. Now, for the first time, I'm thinking this running away thing isn't so cool because I just got locked in a cell by myself,
So Rick had left.
Rick's gone. I don't know if my parents are coming. You know what I'm saying? I don't know anything at this point. It's in the middle of the night now.
And you're 15.
I'm 15 years old. I'm locked in a jail cell by myself. Yeah. And so anyway, a few hours later, they did show up. Turned out there was a fire that diverted them or whatever. And so we get there, we get in the car, hug my mother, everybody's crying, get in the car. We drive down the road just a few miles, and he stops the car and he said, so talk to me. What's going on? And I said, well, he goes, well, I didn't think you had guts enough to do this, And he said, well, I actually said, I didn't think you had balls enough to do this. Okay. And I say, well, whatever you're going to say, And so he reaches in his shirt pocket and he pulls out, or he goes, did you run out of money? And I said, yeah, we pretty much ran out of money. And so he reaches in his shirt pocket and he throws a $20 bill in my lap. And he said, you want to get out and keep going?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I said, nah, I'm good.
Wow. Seem like the people that you work on every day and that you associate with and that you've coached and that you've known for 20 something years, we would have never imagined that about you.
Wow.
Tell me about your kids.
Wow. They're amazing. They are amazing. Austin, went to school with your kids.
Yeah.
And we stayed together. We coached together. We were through all those things. Austin struggled when he was young, with some focusing things and, trying to get a really good grip on things.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to find some programs that really, really helped him. And so Austin went to Troy, graduated with magna cum laude,
Wow.
I joke about, I graduated, thank the Lottie.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So, but he has done amazing. He's in chiropractic school right now. He's just finishing. He's entering the last quarter of his first year.
Wow.
Has honors. He's doing great in school right now. So he's a great kid. He's really social. He's gotten involved in some really social organizations over there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's actually was elected the other day to be a kind of community outreach person for a group, student life force group that he's in right now.
Chip off the old block, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. And we're very, very proud of him. He's doing some amazing things. So yeah. And then there's Grace, Grace was played soccer since she was about 6 years old. Soccer has been an amazing passion for her, but not only a passion, it's been a huge platform. It's given her an opportunity to show her faith, talk about her faith. A lot of people know recently she was a national champion and selected as the number one goalkeeper in the country, and an All-American. And then blew her ACL, played 3 games on a blown ACL. And then is in a rehab process right now. And God has just, the path, I mean, that could be a whole story right there
Yeah.
on the path that she has taken to recovery. But yeah, it's amazing that, how God is working in their lives, and their faith has just been amazing.
What I've been asking people this question in the podcast, and there's not a right or wrong answer. I'm just wondering, how often did your family sit down and have dinner together?
When they were home, yeah,
Yeah.
Leslie was good at that. Leslie really was good at that, making sure that if we were in the house together and we were home, that we were together, and we did take that time, and she would have a hot breakfast for them. These guys know these guys have done the Barbarian Challenge with us. And,
Yeah.
Leslie gets up, walks around the house with a big pan and wakes them all up. And we
Yeah.
make sure that we get together and have that
Right.
meal, and they've been to our house many, many times
Yeah.
where, there's going to be a meal and we're going to be together and we're going to talk,
You're what we call a script flipper.
Okay.
You're one of the guys that came up rough and you've turned it around.
Yeah.
And so the evidence of your turning things around is your children.
Yeah.
And we do something on the program here that we do it for a purpose. It's, for one thing, we want to bring honor back to the role of the father. I think it's something that's missing. But we also do it because there are young men out there who are where you were as a child and as a teenager. And they're thinking, I'm going to be a failure. My kids are never going to make it. It's just we're just a mess, our whole generations. And you've shown that doesn't have to happen. And the evidence of that is your kids. So we ask your kids to give us a little gift. Tell us who their dad is from their perspective. And we'd like to show that to you.
Wow.
Hi, I'm McClellan, and Mike McClellan is my dad. My favorite thing about him is how much he has taught, and like how much he still teaches me today. Like from when I was really young, like he used to teach me everything about like hunting in the woods and sportsmanship and everything. And then now today I'm in chiropractic school, and I'm going like watch his office, and I'm still learning things every day. And it's crazy, like that you always think you're like, oh, I don't need to learn from my dad, I don't need to listen to my dad, but like every day I'm just sitting here, I'm just like, wow, he got a lot to tell me, and I need to listen because he still teaches me more every day. And that's something I really appreciate about him, and I love him for, there's so much there that he wants to help you and give that knowledge. Like one of my favorite memories is we were out deer hunting, and it was like the day I shot my first deer, and we were just like, we had been sitting there, and we were all cold, and it was just about the sun was just about was set, like it was dark. It was like maybe like 10 minutes before we had to leave, and my first deer that walks right out on the field. And I'm just like, and I'm arguing with him like for 10 minutes. I'm like, can I shoot it? And he's like, no. Let's wait. It's too dark. And I'm just like, please. And he's like, all right, fine. And he's like, all right, I want you to hit it in this spot exactly, and it'll go down. And I was like, okay. And I was like all excited, and I got my gun up, and I got it, and I shot it in that spot exactly, and I hit it, and it dropped in. And I was like, and we were all celebrating and freaking out. We were like, yeah. And that was just like the best time. It was like so much fun, and we were all like, and even now, like when we're in the woods together, it's just so much fun. And it's like, even if we're arguing or something's going on, like when we get into the woods, it's like, it's right back to those moments, because it's just our time. And that's something that's kind of like my favorite moments. And it's like he always makes time, even if he's really, really busy. Like if we have like events going on, then he makes sure he's there. And yeah, that's why I really love my dad.
Hi, I'm Grace McClellan, and Mike McClellan is my dad, or Dee, as I like to call him. My favorite thing about my dad is he literally will talk to anybody, and he's always saying hi to people, like just random strangers. He always has a smile on his face, and he'll literally talk to anybody. And he's so funny. And like, I have so many funny videos of him doing embarrassing things, trying to embarrass us, honestly embarrassing himself, like anything. Like, just the videos that I have on my phone are just so funny. He could go viral on TikTok if he let me show them. But he is always so outgoing. Like, we pick on him that he's an old man, but he's really not. He's really young, or maybe we keep him young or something like that. I don't know. But my favorite like memory with my dad is when I was in 4th grade and me and him stayed home, and my mom, my brother, they moved to Georgia for a year. And that time that I got to spend with my dad was really, really priceless at like a really pivotal point in my life, going like 4th, 5th grade. And we just got to spend some really good quality time together. And, you know, that really built a really good foundation for our relationship going forward. And the last thing is he's really taught me like the standards and really what I want in my future husband. And you really showed me like what a God-fearing man is like, and to hold my standards and my worth and the kind of man that I deserve. So if I ever find a man that meets to those standards, I know that we have a really great daddy-daughter dates planned for my wedding. So I look forward to that.
We're going to rock it out.
Because I know that you're always up to do something funny, embarrassing, whatever. So we already have that planned. But I just want to say that I love you, Dad, and I'm so thankful for everything you've done for me now, and I know that you'll do for me in the future, and I'm really blessed to call you my Dee Dee.
Oh, guys.
Hey,
Whoa.
Mike, isn't it so God that he would stop you in the midst of such a busy season, stop you in your tracks so that you could tell your story about how you broke the curse and that you relied on our Heavenly Father to teach you how to be a great dad. And we are so thankful for that. You are a great dad. But more importantly, you're a great person. And you trust God with all that he has given you. And you're sharing it with us and with the world. We appreciate it so much. One of the funniest stories, though, about you is the day that you came home from Promise Keepers. That was funny. When you came home and you're like, I am going to go pray in the office. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pray with the staff every morning. There you go. Bible under the arm. Go into the office. Sit there in the morning meeting and say, okay, let's pray. And they all looked at you like, are you kidding me? And I know that you were following God's will in your life, that you needed to be doing this. And oh my God, I know how scared you were. But to this day, we're still praying in the office for our patients and our staff. And for that, I am truly grateful. Mike, you're a very, very special guy. And just know that in your heart, you're truly appreciated by your family and by so many others, but especially your family. We love you.
Man.
What's it mean to you, Mike, to have your wife and your adult children respect you and love you like that?
Man, that's huge. Whoa. Whoa. Man, that's crazy, isn't it? I mean, how else can you say it? Oof.
I think we all have, as men, we crave for our wives to respect us and appreciate us, and more, maybe more for our children.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't come easy.
No.
It comes after lots of years of being consistent and doing the right thing day in and day out. So,
Wow.
hey, man, you deserve that.
Thank you guys so much. This is, I'm blindsided on this one. You got me on this one. Yeah, but wow. That's big.
Wow.
That's big.
Well, incredible story.
Thank you.
I'm honored that we were the first, I guess, to get to hear that. But I really believe that this is just the beginning for you, Mike.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna be able to reach a lot of people. Tell your story. It needs to be heard.
Yeah. Thank you.
Needs to be
I feel that now in my soul.
Thanks, Dr. Mike McClellan, for being our guest. An incredible story, something I didn't know. Wow, I'm always impressed that God knows who we need.
Yes, absolutely.
And, that'll conclude this episode. Can't say any more of the That's My Dad podcast, where we're trying to inspire fathers to become great dads and break cycles of generational fatherlessness. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.